On this week's episode of the Able to Care podcast, I'm going to be looking at a negotiation technique that I came across in a book a fair few years ago now that I found really useful and adaptive to manage negotiations within a household or within settings. It's a great tool to work with children, young people, but also could be used for even managing your partner. Hello and welcome to the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker. And on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about a negotiation technique for setting rules and for setting boundaries that I've used on a number of different occasions. And I find it a really useful tool that people have kind of taken and run with. Now, I came across this in a book years ago, and I think it was a book specifically around individuals with ADHD. I can't even remember the title. I don't think I've still got it anywhere, but it kind of stuck in my head of being a really useful kind of strategy and tool to work from. And I've used it in all sorts of different ways in different settings, not just in care-orientated environments. So I'm going to go through the way we go about it, and hopefully some of you will find this a useful strategy too. I say it's just a way of negotiating that feels fair, but it allows everybody a valid kind of input onto the situation. And I have actually included a bit of quite a detailed description of this process within my book, Targeting the Positive, as well. So as far as the collective negotiation technique, then, it's a process of exploring a conflict between two groups of people or two people. It often includes situations where caregivers are trying to kind of support positive choices for an individual, for instance, but it's all about kind of boundary and rule setting and things like that. And sometimes it falls into a kind of a battle of wills where it just becomes about defiance and things like that. For those who I'm teaching and when we're walking around things like pathological demand avoidance or oppositional defiant disorder or any situation where an individual's kind of autonomy or lack of autonomy triggers severe kind of difficulty in their emotional regulation and makes them feel unsafe. This is a great tool to feel like, hey, we're working in this together. We're collaborating at this point. So what we do is start off, we look at the situation and we define the problem, and it's agreed by kind of all parties, okay? So both parties start by explaining their point of view. Now, it may just be two, but it could be a case of it's a household of people, and therefore it could be, two parents and one child, or it could be the teacher and TA and the child, or there could be a few kind of situations where, it affects a few people and therefore we might kind of communicate it together. I wouldn't have too many people involved, but maybe a few key people and kind of just so we're getting a balanced point of view. So we start off by maybe the individual kind of complaining of what they don't like, or maybe the caregiver or one person complaining is saying what they do or don't like, okay? And so I'm going to use an example. So it feels difficult for us. It feels frustrating when we have to ask you over and over again to do the same job. Okay, that could be an example from a caregiver or a parent. Okay, now notice my wording. It feels really difficult when we have to. It's not saying you don't listen. It's not judgmental. It should always be put across in a kind of, it's the XYZ formula. I feel X in situation Y when you do Z. The adult or the whoever's going into the adult ego state, which should ideally be the adult or the primary caregiver or whoever it is that's kind of initiating this, should be able to kind of communicate this in a non-confrontational and an I rather than you format to not trigger a kind of a defensive response. I find it difficult when, okay? So another example, we don't like having to rush around as much in the morning to be able to get you to college. So we want you up as early as possible to give us plenty of time, as an example. Okay, so that could be our point of view. Now, if we're giving our point of view, though, the other party should get to give their point of view. Is it why don't they engage in that behavior, or why do they do it their way? So for me, saying it feels frustrating when we have to ask multiple times to get something done. The other person kind of going, well, I get fed up with being nagged because I just want to be able to play on the Xbox, or, I don't want to get up early in the morning in relation to we don't like having to rush around in the morning. Okay. Because what we're looking at is if I have my point of view and I have my feelings and my attitude towards something, there's no universal law that says that my point of view is more valid or more worthwhile than anybody else's. We have to kind of accept that this is where we're looking at collaboration. It's not, but I'm better than you. We have to kind of put it in that we're working in this together to get the best outcomes for all. It's not a versus scenario. And as soon as we get into that versus scenario, this is where so many places create themselves such a headache and such a challenge, and they really damage relationships and connections as a result. Although sometimes there has to be boundaries, as I've said on other podcasts, collaboration or joint consensus to those boundaries, to those rules, makes it more likely for everybody to follow them. If we take those two examples, both parties get an opportunity to kind of say their point of view about how they feel about this particular situation, okay? So the individual should be encouraged to express their feelings about the issue. The caregiver should be mindful to remain non-critical and rational. And the caregiver can raise a concern, allow the individual to express their own point of view in it. Okay, so we may try to explore any reasons why the individual feels that way, okay? Maybe there's a justification, because this is the thing. Maybe they're right. Maybe there's a case of like, we think they should get up early, but they don't actually need to. They've got plenty of time to get ready if we were just a bit more organized in the evening, for instance, okay? But this is something we can explore. But in this point, what we do is we brainstorm potential ideas. So that could be an idea we come up with going, okay, well, how about we got more stuff ready in the evening and then give us, maybe you then can have a bit more of a lie-in in the morning. Okay, that could be one possible option. Now, we might find, though, that both parties want to give their own opinion, which is, why can't you just do as you're told the first time? That may be my point of view if I'm the caregiver. Why can't you just do as you're told the first time? But their point of view going, why can't you just leave me alone and let me do what I want? Again, why is my idea more valid than theirs at this point in time? So instead, we just share those two ideas. We just go, okay, let's write them both down. We never ask you to do anything is one possible option. Or vice versa is a case of you do it straight away. Both possible options, let's just put them down. We just brainstorm them, okay? From there, we basically come up with any idea we possibly can. So I gave the example of the getting up early in the morning, for instance. It could be a case of, we get stuff ready the night before. We get up just half an hour earlier. We don't nag. We just ask you once. You get a tick sheet to be able to get yourself ready. We see if there's a bus rather than walking, so you can actually get there more easily, for instance. These are just a few ideas that I'm just kind of chucking out off the top of my head, trying to come up with a few as far as we just put them down. Okay. For the example of, why can't you do what you told when I tell you, and why can't you just leave me alone? It could be a case of, how about I tell you once, but then I don't nag you, but you have half an hour to do it. Could be a potential option. Now, what we're looking at, we're just brainstorming all these different ideas. And then what we do is we go down through each of the ideas and we give it a plus or a minus based on whether it's something we feel we could or could not live with. And every person as part of that group is concerned gets to either put a plus or a minus. So if it's 2 adults and 1 child, if it's 1 adult, 1 child, it's a case of, so I'm going to go, do as you're told when I tell you, is going to get a plus, but never asking me, it's probably going to get a minus from the child, but the child going, just never ask me anything is going to get a plus from them, but a minus from you. Okay. So there's this very obvious kind of sign that there is an equality to this as far as everybody's opinion is valid and everybody's going, could I live with this or could I not live with this? What we're ideally going to come out with from the brainstorming, and this is where sometimes even the stupidest idea may come out with something, may have a nugget of gold in there, is that the idea that actually has 3 pluses, if it is 2 parents and a child, the idea that has 3 pluses is obviously visually more advantageous than the option that has 2 minuses and 1 plus, or even the 2 pluses and 1 minus. The one that has 3 pluses is better than the one with 3 minuses, okay? But it's very visual and it demonstrates it's very, very fair. Everybody involved is having that consideration, is having that same value. The child's point isn't -1 in comparison to the 2 adults or anything like that. It is their point is as valid and their choice is as valid as the adults is. So it's a very, very kind of clear way of a collaborative approach, which can be really beneficial. From this, we're then looking, and even the 2 pluses, 1 minus is still obviously better than the 3 minuses or the 2 minuses and 1 plus. Okay. So this allows us, by voting for each of the proposals, we summed up, we then see, okay, which one of these are we going to do? And then this is put forwards as the kind of potential rule. Okay. So we set this as the rule itself. And then from there, we can create a part of a plan of it, of how we're going to action it and do it. And we can start initiating it. And for those of you who watched the video or haven't watched the video yet on the cycle of change, we can start initiating this as far as a change cycle, a new habit. We might find that some individuals will still try and work around this and negotiate on it and things like that. Whenever I'm kind of teaching around behavior, for me personally, this is my strong belief. I come from a very therapeutic background and approach. So I think boundaries are really important, but we should always be therapeutic and understanding and accepting and curious of why this person finds this boundary really difficult to do. It should always be based on the best interest of the individual as well. We don't necessarily reiterate rules just arbitrary, just because we have the power. So it is important to have those boundaries in place, but it's the acceptance and the unconditional positive regard and the understanding and empathy when a person's going to find those boundaries difficult, and kind of accepting, I know you're going to try and negotiate on this. I know you're trying to kind of push the boundaries on this. I get it. We agreed this is what we're going to do. And obviously then whether there's a reinforcement schedule or a natural consequences to that would be decided based on the best interests of the child or the personality of the child or the difficulties the child may experience from learning through that effect. Okay. Obviously, there's quite a lot there at the end. I think it's a great little negotiation tool. I've used it in a few different environments. I've even used it within relationships. And I even use it at times in work kind of situations. So it's a great little model to kind of work from. Hopefully that made sense to you for those of you who are listening. Obviously, I said it is kind of described. It is my book. I don't remember, I say, the idea or some of the principles from it came from somewhere, but it's been so long since I kind of are aware. I've just been teaching it that long. I've kind of forgotten where the original, but I always kind of recognize very little. A lot of teachers come out of my own brain. It's from information I've gathered from other people and strategies that have worked over a long period of time. Obviously, there's no perfect strategy, but I think it's a great little tool for your toolbox and see how it goes. So if you found this interesting, please like, comment, or share. If you would like more information on the Targeted to Positive book, we'll put a link in the description. It is coming out in November in 2024, and it is a full book on understanding and helping us to better engage with and build relationships and improve outcomes for individuals by looking at behavior. Okay. But otherwise, thank you.